Well, come on in, have a seat. We'll spend a few minutes together.
Do you want a bottle of water? Do you want
No, this will be
or juice or anything?
We helped us out to the cookie.
Okay.
I got them all looked after.
Great. So the Mississauga Food Bank, we just marked the occasion of our 25th anniversary. So for lots of charities, you celebrate a 25th anniversary. For us, it's kind of a bittersweet celebration. It was started in 1986 as a result of a study that was done in Peel. And they established that, food and hunger was a challenge for people living in this region. And so at that point, when they started, they had about 18 families every month coming to the food bank to supplement their food supply. Food banks exist to be a source of emergency food. It's not like a grocery store that gives you all the food you need, but something to help you get by when times are tight. And so then by the 90s, the numbers had really increased. And then now we are feeding 38,000 people a month here in Mississauga. So Mississauga is actually, I think people often think of it still as kind of a neighborhood of Toronto, but Mississauga is Canada's 6th largest city. There's almost 750,000 people who live in Mississauga, and 17% of those would be people who would be classified as living below the poverty line.
17%.
17%.
Wow.
Yeah, so 17% of 700-ish thousand is a fair number, over 100,000 people who would be living below the poverty line.
Wow.
And yet right now we're feeding 38,000 people a month. So that's really grown, and that's about 20% increase from 2 years ago before the global recession hit. And suddenly we saw a 20% increase in families needing the food bank. So what we do here at the Mississauga Food Bank is we're the central distribution hub for the city of Mississauga. So people like yourselves join on board with us to collect funds and food, and we source 100 tons of food a month comes in and out of our facilities.
Which are children that we're looking after as well. So about half of that 38,000 that we're feeding each month are children. And the new programs we're adding on, we're trying to look for programs that are youth-focused, children-focused. So Megan talked about the breakfast program. So with those, that's reaching a lot of children in the morning before they go to school who can't afford, their parents can't afford to feed them breakfast. And so we have a big focus on youth and children. So it's amazing how many there are that are hungry in Mississauga. So that's one of our focuses. For example, they get a birthday present at all the food banks on their birthday. So we also administer that program here as well. It's not food, but it's part of our outreach to the community to just help these children. So they get a brand new gift on their birthday. It's age and gender appropriate. So we're not only moving food, but you may see some gifts out there in the warehouse as well, the birthday present type gifts. So just an example of other things beyond the food in terms of our outreach.
I mean, I don't know what the current statistic is, but I think it was in 2009, early 2009, you were looking at about 800,000 users of food banks in all of Canada, and almost 40% of them were children.
It's up over 900,000 now. We just got recent statistics today. It's closer to 50% are children now.
50% of children.
So for the most part, it's families with children that are using the food bank. For many of them, they're working, but there's also a large group that are on Ontario Works that are receiving welfare from the government.
Right.
And in Peel, the big problem is for many of them, they spend up to 80% of their income, whether it's from welfare or employment, on housing. So the average food bank client spends about $1,000 a month on renting their apartment or paying for their house. But if you only get, let's say $1,300 from your welfare check, and then your rent's $1,000, you got $300 left over for everything else. It's a tough go. And so for people, until that there's either an increase in pay or a decrease in the cost of housing, food banks are going to be required to help people to meet that need in the middle. And so for us, what we're doing is alleviating hunger.
We're committed to helping you in any way possible, and to really spreading the word and trying to get volunteers and more donations, and that it'd be really nice to see that that many of the local mosques take part individually, but then it kind of channels into what you're already doing. So this is good. This is a start, But one of the things is that from our perspective, that's so important that when the Prophet Muhammad migrated from Mecca to Medina, the very first thing that he said when he entered into Medina was he said that Ya ayyuhal anam in Arabic, O people, afshu salam, spread peace, wa at'imu ta'am, feed people. That was his advice, to spread peace, feed people, and then pray at night while people are sleeping, enter into paradise safely. But the idea of feeding people from a Muslim perspective, it's a Quranic concept, and that God says in the Quran as well, وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا, and that they feed people food, and different categories that are mentioned. And so this is very much, this is an extremely important data. I would encourage you and to bring other people as well, and even with my own family, that this is something that is very important with my children, to get them used from an early age to feeding the homeless, and going out and offering community service. And I've noticed in children that when you encourage them to volunteer at an early age, that it affects their life later on, and they get that consciousness of kind of the other side of things that they might not see in the suburbs and so forth, and it's very beneficial for them. So
I live in a complex of townhouses that are mostly Muslim, and if you walk around, you think that everything's fine in the neighborhood, right? But my family, my parents live in that neighborhood, so there's a lot of hidden poverty, right? There's a lot of families that are simply not able to make ends meet, and it's not because they're slacking off or whatever. They're trying. We need to engage the broader society, and I think that's where I think we're very keen to facilitate that, both through the hub itself, but more broadly to have that to raise consciousness of the need to actively volunteer and participate in these organizations.